Well, thank you very much for that amiable and on the whole agreeable introduction. There are various minor amendments that I need to make. Richard Nixon arrived in Washington in the spring of 1941 from an unsuccessful law practice in California. And he first applied for a job to the FBI. He always said in his memoirs that he was turned down because of a cut in the FBI appropriation. So far as history tells, the FBI never had a cut in its appropriation. And we can only conclude that he was refused position because of a premature judgment on his character by J. Edgar Hoover. So that makes my situation even worse because my knowledge of character was below that of J. Edgar Hoover. Anyway, it was a time when the Office of Price Administration was hiring everybody subject to one medical qualification, which it was said was applied uniformly. You must not be able to see daylight in either ear. And on that medical judgment, Nixon passed, and thus my responsibility. I did not know him. In the 1952 and 1956 election campaigns to which you adverted, I was with Adlai Stevenson as a speechwriter, and I was in charge of the anti-Nixon speeches. One could not attack Dwight D. Eisenhower. It was like attacking God, but one could attack Nixon. And one of the proudest instructions I ever had in my life was from Adlai Stevenson during that campaign. He said, I want you, my dear Ken, to write the anti-Nixon speeches because you have no tendency to be fair. My topic this evening is that it's never too late to repent and improve, but in my case, of course, it could be. I begin by suggesting to you my own history in teaching. Began at the University of California some 50 years ago, 45 years ago, where I taught at what was then the Davis campus of the university in Berkeley, Davis campus being sacred to agriculture, home economics, veterinary medicine, and a few things of that sort. And I was there the chairman of the Department of Economics and also of agricultural economics, also of farm management, also of farm accounting. And I was the total faculty in all those departments. My academic career has been downhill ever since. I've been losing responsibility for the last half-century. I came from the University of California to Harvard, where I served for a number of years until I was offered a post at Princeton. I had no intention of going to Princeton, but I had heard, as many others had, that the way you got promotion as a teacher was to have a competing offer from another university. And while I was down being interviewed at Princeton for the purpose of coming back and saying I had this competing offer, I got a telegram from the chairman of the Department of Economics at Harvard saying there's no future for you at Harvard, take anything that Princeton offers. That enormously weakened my bargaining position at Harvard, at Princeton, where I must say that I had the worst teaching experience of my life. I look back on most of these years with some admixture of amusement and pleasure. I look back on my teaching at Princeton as a totally sordid experience. before World War II, the students at Princeton were recruited in accordance with whether they conformed to what was called a Princeton type or not. They came from the Philadelphia main line or from New York or from the deep South. And a Princeton type was somebody who had social graces, sexual capacity, I assume, some athletic talent, and was otherwise exceptionally dim-witted. This was in the years of the Keynesian revolution, which had come to Harvard with a great, like a flash of lightning in the 1930s. There was an enormous excitement among the younger people here over the whole range of Keynesian ideas. And I saw myself as an exponent of that at Princeton. And so after, as the classes developed, I would take issue with the orthodox economics, come up with the, well, history I think has instructed us, let us believe, is a more modern view of the world, although it is also obsolete now. And always would I encounter the indignation of the students who would say, why do you bother us with that? Because it's not what we will be asked on the examination. And there was always a sense of real indignation that I was confusing them by adding knowledge which would not be relevant to getting a minimal grade on the final examination. Harvard in those years was a much more interesting place. And I returned to Harvard after some experience in government and journalism in the late 1930s, late 1940s. Two institutions with which I've been familiar over a lifetime have improved enormously. One of them, believe it or not, is the Congress of the United States, and particularly the Democratic side of the Congress. In the 1940s, I think I can honestly say that I knew every congressman and every senator. You could not be in charge of all the prices in the United States without hearing from most of them in the course of any given week. And the Democrats in the Congress in the 1940s, I'm not exaggerating, were all more or less equally divided between semi-literates from the South and semi-criminals from the North. I'm not overstating that. The Southerners came out of the one-crop districts, cotton, tobacco, naval stores, peanuts. There was one congressman who always introduced himself on the telephone, not without humor, as the leading peanut politician of the United States Congress. After they had finished with matters concerning those particular crops, their day was finished and they relaxed and paid no attention to to any other issue except as a matter of eccentricity, did what they were told to do by the president, which perhaps had some merit in those days when we had Roosevelt, as compared with now with Ronald Reagan. You missed that.